We are rolling. Billy, how are you?
I am good. How are you, friend?
I'm doing very well. And before we even deep dive, man, I just thank you. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day and doing this for the group. Selfishly doing it for me, probably.
Well, I enjoy it, and it makes me feel good to know that people think that I have a story worth telling, or that I have some value that I can give to others. That could use some of what I know. I'm also here to learn. So anything like that is I love stuff like this.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. Well, we're before just in case I know in Dallas Fort Worth area, if I'm correct, you're probably a living legend. But for the folks that are in the Facebook group, why if you take as long as you want, but give us a little bit of your background and you personally and as well as the business.
Well, you used the word legend there. I'm a legend in my own mind, right? Aren't we all?
Aren't we
The
all?
gosh, I started out like a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, self-employed people, right? Like I was self-employed forever, really since I got out of high school. I don't know that I've ever really had a W-2 job. Maybe now I'm just unemployable, right? So I have to make this work. But I started out doing door installations for Home Depot as a sub way back in the early 2000s, and that lasted for a couple years. I always thought there was a better way to do it than what Home Depot, did, right? Like it's very transactional. All the customers were always pissed off when we got there. Everything was wrong most of the time. And the most enjoyable part for the customers of the whole process was usually the installation, because you had someone there that actually had some knowledge about at least their part of the process and made it go smoothly, right? So that was always eye-opening to me, that such a large corporation could have such a loose handle on something that was so important to the people they were serving. And it kind of stuck with me then, but it took me years to come back to it. I went through kitchen and bath stuff and just general remodeling for a while, just trying to pay the bills, never really realizing that I could build a business around the business of just doors, right? Because most people that do doors secondary to windows, right? And the windows is really where everybody goes because the tickets are bigger, it's easier, quicker, all the things. But I was just always, enamored with doors. And, so rocked along there. I met this guy on Craigslist back in the early 2000s, 2005 or 6, who was selling. He was selling doors and door repairs really to people, and he was getting more leads than he knew what to do with. So he was looking for someone he could just hand the leads off to. They could sell and do the job, and then just give him a percentage of the thing. Well, I was like, all right, I'll do it. I love doing this stuff. So I did it for a year or so, and I was like, wow, man, this guy's getting a lot of leads. So I started asking him, and whatnot, and how he was doing it, and he taught me. He was using Google AdWords, which in 2006 and 2007 was pretty cutting edge technology. It was super cheap. You could get clicks for a dime, a quarter, and super high intent back then too, right? Because the internet was new and the people that were searching for the things really, the search volume was down. So when you got one, it was a good lead, and they were easy to sell. I did that for a while, and then I did a job one day for a guy who built websites and landing pages and stuff. So he built me a website for my little shingle. It was just basically a landing page, and did a little bit of SEO for it. Started getting some leads, and the next thing you know, I'm making $2,000 or $3,000 a week, and only working 2 or 3 days a week. And one thing leads to another. You get more leads, you need more help, and the entrepreneurial seizure happens. Right, I go from being self-employed to being an entrepreneur, or so I thought, right? And it took me 10 more years, maybe even longer, to really understand what it meant to be an entrepreneur and not own a job. And so I met my wife in 2008. We got married in 2011, and decided.
By the way, congrats! It was an anniversary recently, right? I think I saw.
Yeah, March. Yeah.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you. 14 years. And 14 years into a life sentence is what I tell her.
Oh, geez.
So anyway, we met, we got married, and started to get a little bit more traction, online, a little bit of SEO, starting to get some, more and more leads and bigger jobs, and at first we were really just doing repairs and installing doors that we could pick up, from wherever, Lowe's, Home Depot, the surplus places, the local building supply, where people would buy their own door and find me to come and install it. And, we were taking doors out, taking the frames out and rebuilding all new frames and re-putting the doors back in. I'm like, gosh, if I can do this, I can build a whole unit in my own shop. Right. And then we were also buying custom doors from these other places and buying door units. And I'm like, gosh, all I need to do is buy the components and I can do it because they're messing half of them up. So, I had another entrepreneurial seizure and went and bought a bunch of secondhand, shop construction equipment, and we started making doors and putting doors together. And I really wanted to make a door for my house. And that was really what started this whole custom thing. And I made a custom white oak door for my house and, built my own website. After the first one, I built my own website. It looked like a fifth grade school project, but I was proud of myself. I built it on Wix and I did $1 million worth of sales off of that website the last year we used it. Right. So,
wow.
But back then I was wearing all the hats and pissing on all the fires, and there were plenty of fires every single day. And, about that time, I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And that was really when things started to change in a big way for me, entrepreneurially, as a business, as a marketing person, as a salesperson, right? And I didn't realize that all those things were different components of a successful business. I just felt like they were just all skill sets you needed to have to survive. And when I started to separate and break those out and treat them as different, skills and professions and to apply them as such, then that's when things really started to kind of change for me.
Holy cow. So I noticed you guys, when you say doors, there's a couple questions I have just off the top about the business. So you guys make your own doors?
We build all of our own door units in-house. We have wholesale accounts at all of the manufacturing and supply houses, right? Like the distributors. So 84 Lumber and Lowe's even, and all these other places, they get all their components and their units from the same place that I buy the components from. So I'm buying things. They'll have the same buying power as the big shops that make the doors that sell retail to the installers or the builders or whatever. So we bring in all the components and then we build the units here in house on standard. We call them commodity units, fiberglass units, inserts, things like that. Composite door jams. And then on the custom stuff, we build here from scratch. We make all of our own door styles from scratch. We veneer everything in-house. We do all the CAD drawings. We have a CNC. We cut everything out here and build all of those really crazy units here. And we also have in-house finishing. So we have a finishing department, a spray booth, and a big curing oven, infrared curing oven. So when we spray something, roll it into the oven, and 20 minutes later, it comes out ready to go, either for a second coat or to go to the field.
Now, are you doing just entry? Are you doing interior? Are you doing a little bit of everything?
A little bit of everything there. Only thing we really won't do is overhead. We stay away from the garage, and we're not doing windows right now. We're just doing doors. 80% of what we do, maybe 85, is exterior entry. We do some interior. A lot of the interior stuff we do is custom, where we take in Texas, a lot of the houses that were built after probably 1985 or so, they have a room off the main entry that's got a big cased opening or a sheetrock opening, and a lot of them have arches and they're goofy sizes and stuff, and people want to make those rooms offices or whatever. So they'll call us to make door units to fit those spaces, so they don't have to demo and reframe the opening. We just make one that fits.
So I noticed on your site, and maybe you can lead in, and I think I saw it somewhere. I was looking at it the other night. Was it basically send us the picture of your door or current door and to get a quote?
Yep.
Is that just to get the lead, or do you guys do you sell it in the home? How do you guys do, if you don't mind me asking, how do you sell your jobs?
We sell 100% of our jobs over the phone, right? And when I say over the phone, we ask, so let's just say you wanted a new front door, right?
Yeah.
So I would ask you to send me a picture of the existing door, one from the inside, one from the outside overall. Tell me a little bit about what you hate about it, and tell me a little bit about what you, or share some inspiration about what you'd like the new front door to look like. When it comes to doors, right, like most people don't realize this, but there's only a few sizes, right? And in my market, there's really only two heights, right? 6'8" and 8 foot tall. So I've learned to tell how what's what from the pictures. I've trained my guys how to do the same thing. And when you're talking about, especially rear entry and patio doors, because those are almost commoditized. There's not a lot of choices for the most part when it comes to those unhinged doors. And it's just the glass differences. And we only sell fiberglass for those unless they want wood. We don't sell steel doors.
Okay.
We sell iron. That's different. But the builder's grade steel doors, we don't mess with them.
Okay.
But I can tell the sizes. You know, we have algorithms and ways to tell what size is what. So, I mean, and even if I think it's a 2.8 and it winds up being a 3.0, the cost difference in the cost of goods is like $6 between the two. So if I'm off by $6, which on a $5,000 average ticket isn't going to make or break the deal, right? So you send some pictures over, and we'll set you up for a consultation later in the day with one of our door experts, right? That's what we call a door expert. And all we do is ask you to have the pictures over before that time. On the calendar, we use a CRM called Service Titan. And so when we set it on the calendar, you'll get a text saying what time the thing is, who the technician or the sales guy is going to be, and requesting that you send the photos before that time. As long as we have the photos, we can take it from there. Let's just say you wanted to do a front door and you wanted something custom or something you saw online or whatever. Send me a screenshot or whatever, and we'll analyze the door that you send, right? Like the pictures you send to your front door. I can tell if it's a single or a double, 6'8" or 8 foot tall, whatever. And then I'll take the size that you need, and I will take the inspiration you have, and I'll source the components that will fit that to give you the style that you want and the look. And then I'll package all that up with compiling the unit, finishing it, stain, paint, whatever, and then also installation. And then I'll give you a package price for a turnkey project. And it's the same. Like if you're selling software over Zoom, to me, the process is the same, right? The sales is sales. You got to make a connection, build rapport, talk about, the benefits and all the things, and go through whatever your best practices is in sales. And, it's a lot easier to have a two-legger, on the phone than it is to at 1 o'clock on a Wednesday. Right.
Yeah.
And we also record the calls, and we can share the recording with them also if they want to send it on their significant other, because I know at my house, if my wife got an estimate to redo the patio or something, and someone came out and built trust and value with her and went through everything, and she was good to go. But when I get home, I don't want to hear all that. I'm like, well, how much does it cost? Right. So being able to share that, video or the recording of the call, so the other person, if they aren't on the call, can, hopefully connect with that value, component as well. So, but once we have, established a price and you say, hey, that sounds good or whatever, we'll email you the estimate. You can click and approve it online, or we'll do it on our side. And then and on that same call, we'll transfer you to our dispatch, and they'll set you up for a field assessment where we come out and actually physically measure everything and make sure what we've prescribed or ascribed over the call is exactly what you need. And we always leave a caveat that, we may find something or miss something or whatever. If we do, we'll make you aware when we get to your house, and we'll, reconcile that with you then. Doesn't really matter if you do, as long as you've already built enough trust and value to get them to approve anything when you get there. If you need to change anything, then it's not really a big deal. But that's how we sell everything. And then it makes the whole process a lot faster, simpler, smoother. People today are, we've got a microwave society now, right? Like Amazon buying public now, right? We're getting to the point in time where the people that are buying houses now haven't grown up without technology, right? Like, I'm assuming you're probably about the same age as me, mid 40s, somewhere in there.
Yep.
The I got a cell phone after high school, but it wasn't 5, 6, 8 years after I graduated. The kids had cell phones from grade school on, right? So we're all buying on our phones. We're all looking at reviews and we're looking at the things online before we ever buy or make that call anymore. So what we wanted to do was try and change the customer experience with home service and then back it up with service that nobody else can touch. And so far we're growing pretty fast and had really good feedback from customers who, they really appreciate it. They enjoy it. I mean, let's face it, most smaller companies, if you're a solopreneur or a 3 or 4 truck, company or a truck in a truck or whatever, you're going to take a catalog out there. They're going to pick a door. You're going to call the desk at the lumber yard and tell them what you need. They're going to call you back 3 or 4 hours later to give you a price. By then you've lost interest or you wrote it down somewhere and you can't find it. And half the time, most people wind up not even sending them an estimate anyway. So they call back in 3 or 4 days. Hey, you got that estimate? Oh yeah, I'll get it for you. So what we do is we get all their information. We tell them what they need to hear. We show them what they want to see. We sell them what they want, and then we give them an estimate on the spot. And it makes this whole buying experience a whole lot better for the customer. And then we also are super fast in fulfillment, with our production and finish and in-house installation teams. It's an experience that nobody else can touch.
So I want to go back, if you don't mind, because I'm sure there's people that have questions, or maybe they don't, but I do. When you set up that call, first thing, how quick are you? Sounds like you're pretty quick from
same day.
Wow. There's my answer. Okay. That's awesome. How many of these can you do? Can a rep, we'll just say salesperson, your salesperson, door expert, do a day?
15 or 20.
How long are they on average?
It depends, right? Because we also do door repairs.
Okay.
And door repair calls are usually pretty quick and easy and simple. They're lower ticket. It's not, you don't have to connect and be as deep with a customer as you do when you're trying to get them to spend 8,000 or 9,000. It's pretty straightforward. It's not that hard to aggravate the problem because they call and they're already complaining, hey man, this door's stuck. I'm getting a lot of cold air, or it's rotted or whatever. So those are really actually pretty easy to close and don't take that much time. So in a door expert's day, he's going to have probably 50-50 between repair calls and replacement calls. And a lot of the repair calls also flip into replacement calls because if somebody calls and their door's rotted, they should have called me 3 years ago. It's too late to fix it, right? So we'll give them options for a new door. But anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on the scope, the size of the job, the size of the ticket, the types of questions that the customer has. We also send them information before the call, some video links and stuff. So to kind of educate them on our process, try and frame up who we are and what they can expect, if they, go through this process with us, and just to kind of separate ourselves from anybody else they may talk to. One of my things is I don't care if they hire me or not. I mean, I really do, but I don't. But what I do care about most is that whoever they call after me has to live up to the standards that I've already set, right?
Which is, to me, it's like what you guys do is probably a big pattern disrupt compared to whatever they're going to experience or have experienced, I would assume. I can't imagine Texas is any different than every other state in the country from that side.
Yeah, I don't think so. And we're super excited, about what we've got going on and just continuing to dial in and tweak our processes. The manufacturing is really the key to all of it, and the barrier for entry, bigger picture, because we've invested millions of dollars in our manufacturing, but it took a long time to get it where it needs to be, but it's really the ace in the hole here.
So back on the appointment itself, I send you my pictures. You schedule it the same day. It's a call. Is it a call or is it like a Zoom?
No, it starts out on the phone. We've been messing around with Zoom and all the things and Google Meets and Teams and whatever. And there's too many barriers, right? Like different customers may not know or understand one of those. So what we do is we start out on a phone call. If it's a repair and they've sent us sufficient pictures, I don't need to get on a Zoom to sell it. If it's a replacement call, we'll have a talk, and I'll be like, you know what? Would you mind if we, on the phone call, would you mind if we move this over to a video call so I can share my screen and we can build out your ideas and you can watch it in real time as I build this door unit? It'll give us a price on the screen, and then we can, you'll see what it looks like in real time, and then, all the things, right? So once we transition over to that video call, then, that's when we can do all that. So we start out on the phone. It takes out the confusion of how to use Google or if they have to download an app or anything like that. And we use a service called Live Switch, and it's they got a lot of different levels, but basically I can, while we're on the Live Switch call, I can take stills on my side. If they hold the camera up or whatever, I can pull stills out of the video call of the door or the problem or whatever, and then mark those up if I need to, or use them, or put them in the customer's file so the technicians can see them, stuff like that.
Holy cow, that's a game changer. Is the other, you talked about it, I don't know if it, do you have like a visualizer to show what the future door or is going to look like? Or
you'd think I could probably sell a lot more if we did. We're actually working on that, but we just basically, as rudimentary as it is, right? Like a lot of times, 90% of the time on front entries is really the only place where it matters. Rear entries are no problem. We can share visuals of that. I mean, 99% of the time they have a door. The new door is going to look identical to the old door. So if they ask, what's it going to look like? I'm like, go look out your back door. That's what it's going to look like, right? But 90% of the time on a new entry, they already have an idea. They have some inspiration already that they share with us. If it's custom wood, we do CAD drawings, and we get them to approve the CAD drawing, and we use the same drawing for production. If it's fiberglass or iron, we also do a CAD drawing. If it's fiberglass, we build it on the screen, and they can see what it's going to look like as we share our screen, or we'll share, those components and visuals with them. But as far as what does it look like on my house, no, we don't have that capacity right now.
But a CAD though is there. I mean, ultimately they got an idea. Okay, that's better than where we were years ago. So
yeah.
My other question around it, which just naturally people are probably wondering, your conversion rate. It's still pretty awesome. It sounds like.
Yeah, it's it hasn't always been this good, and I haven't always had great salesmen. I've been guys that tried, and even myself at times, right? This whole thing started in 2018, I guess, right? Like I was the only sales guy. I was driving to look at all the jobs, and I got to where I just couldn't. I mean, I was getting 8 to 10 calls a day, right? And in an area the size of Dallas, you just can't go and look at it really more. I could catch one. I could look at one on my way to a job in the morning. I could do a job and then maybe catch one more in the afternoon on my way home, right? So it was just getting overwhelming to keep up with all the things. And I didn't know how to hire. I didn't know who to call. I had none of those skills yet. So I was just like, hey, send me a couple pictures of your door. I can look at the problem and I'll text you back a price, right? Like I was not a sales guy. I had no idea what I was doing. I could sell, face to face, no problem, because I had a solution to a problem that not a lot of guys had, right? So this is a little bit easier to sell a hamburger if you're the only hamburger stand, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it started. They would all send me pictures and their address and stuff, and I would just text them back a price. It's $800 if you want to do it. It's $0 if you don't, right? Like I had zero sales acumen, and I was staying alive and doing good enough. And then I decided that I needed to hire some sales guys, and we needed to change the way we do stuff. So I hired a guy who had been a sales guy for Renewal by Anderson, right? And they sold Anderson and Provia and all those doors that a lot of the window guys are familiar with. So, and he also had really solid sales training from those organizations, right? Especially Anderson. So I'm like, I can't mess with this guy. So I brought him over and told him what I was doing and hired him. And, I was like, hey, and then COVID hit. And I got him started over the phone. He sat with me for a while, and I showed him what I was doing and this and that. And I also hired 2 guys that used to work at Home Depot too, at the millwork desk. And that was a mistake, just because I thought they would be good at sales, but they're just order takers, right? Those guys don't need sales skills. But anyway, they were good guys, knew the things. But anyway, Phil, my sales guy then, was like, hey, this whole over the phone thing isn't going to work. Well, I'll do it, right? Like, just because it's too many calls a day. Back then it was like 7 or 8 he was getting, 6, something like that. And he's like, I don't think this is going to work, but we'll try it. I'll do it your way. So he got into it. And after a while, I was convinced. I was like, you know what? I'm just not convinced we shouldn't be going back in the home now that COVID's over and all things. He's like, bro, you're crazy. I'm never going back in the home, So we started working on our sales acumen, he and I both, and the other guy we had, and we got a lot better at it. But when it was bad, I was convinced that it didn't matter who you were talking to, that 28 to 31% of the population is going to buy whatever you have to sell, no matter how good of a salesperson you are, right? Because that was our close rate, and we weren't very good at sales over the phone. But as we've gotten better and polished things and gotten better at storytelling and things like that, now we're consistently in the low to mid 40s on our close rate.
And or if you don't, are you guys, I was going to ask this too. If you're running 15 a day, right? I'm assuming, I don't want to assume, but are you trying to ultimately facilitate it over the phone that time? Because obviously follow-up could be that many. That's a lot.
Yeah. So 30% of the jobs we close on the first call, right?
Okay.
Not 30% of the calls, but 30% of the 40% of the jobs we close. So if we run, it's just used for easy math. If he runs 10 calls and closes 4, right? 30% of those 4 close. So 1.5 out of 4 close on the first call.
Okay.
Or whatever, 30 out of 100, right? But we have a rehash and follow-up programs and, stuff like that. And we close jobs that are, where the estimates were 2 weeks old all the time. And we closed one last week that was like 340 something days, just because we stay in front of them. And honestly, a lot of people, get busy and move on, but others also look for other estimates, which it's hard to get just for that problem that they have with a single door, so most of them come back.
What do you think is the difference between the person that moves forward on the first call versus, have you ever thought about that, versus doesn't?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times it's their marketplace experience, right? So younger people, a lot of times they want to get more estimates, or they're the ones that get sticker shocked the most, right? And everybody gets sticker shocked. No one expects, a door to cost more than their first car, right?
Yeah.
And but a lot of younger people want to get multiple prices. But the older the client is, the less I see that, because they've already got the life experience of going with the cheapest person and chasing the contractors that don't have insurance and do a half-assed job and don't come back to finish, right? And so when they see something that's polished and well put together and presented well, and really the one thing that I see and hear the most in our reviews and looking at other companies' reviews, a lot of the 1-star reviews for other companies mention poor communication. My reviews from 4 years ago mentioned poor communication, but our good reviews looking forward all mention good communication, right? And that's really, when somebody writes you a deposit check for $2,000 or $3,000, you better be communicating with them. Even if you tell them it's going to be 6 weeks, you need to communicate well before that 6 weeks timeline, because they just all start to create these narratives in their head,
Of course.
So communication is really a big deal.
So, by the way, I hope you don't mind rapid fire questions, because this just intrigues me. You probably answer them all the time, and you're like, but I love it, because I'm sure there's been a lot of people either in our industry or you've gone to events that are like, you can't do it this way, and you're doing it. That's why I love it so much.
Probably mostly because I didn't know any better. It probably works because I didn't listen to a lot of people. I just did it out of necessity, and nobody told me it wouldn't work, right? I didn't have that preconceived notion.
Well, one of my favorite, it's funny you say that, one of my favorite banners, we have it in I have it in my basement in my home that says, if I knew it was going to be this hard, I probably wouldn't have started it.
For sure.
Right? Or something along those lines. So that to me, I think that's awesome that being naive is I'm sure there's some great quote about that. But the other question I have is, that intrigues me. You send a bunch of information that would probably be like, related to the company, that so they can familiarize themselves with it. do you find that they're reading that information or looking through it? Is there any way you can track it, or you're able to tell when you call them?
Yeah, it's hard to say. We send it in video form, and it's
Okay.
like a 60-second video. We're actually getting ready to shoot new videos that we'll both send, right, and also just put on our website too, so people can kind of go to the FAQs and click the videos and forums and things like that, and learn how to do business with us. What I've found in doors, and I'm sure it's the same with windows and probably roofs, right, things with long buying cycles or sales cycles, is that people are looking for education more than an invoice, right, or an estimate first, right? So the better information that you can arm people with, the more up to date, and the information that you put on your website that serves what they're looking for, right? Human content that is helpful relative to their problem and in their neighborhood. The more you can do that, the better you'll have at closing that person. And there's a lot of science behind buyers and personality types and things like that and how they buy. There's a segment of the population that'll buy whatever it is, no matter the price, on the first call. You're going to get those. There's a segment of the population that will buy, but they need some time to think about it and to do some more research. And if you check all their boxes, they'll buy. And there's a section of the population you don't ever want to work for at any price, and you don't want them, and they don't want you, right? And so we're working on building it better, but building out that information library, so to speak, to where we can speak to all those people in the way that they want to hear it and receive it in a way that lets them let themselves out the door, so to speak, or come through if they feel like we're a good fit.
Do you have a challenge with it was just right there, man. I just wanted to. Oh yeah, sorry. Do you have folks that are like, "Hey, Billy, you're awesome. You sound great. We even got on a video. You look great, but I really want you to come out still."
Yeah, we do. And depending on the type of job it is, right? Like we don't really like to do that for light ticket jobs or repair type stuff, because I just want to send a tech out. And sometimes we will even still send a tech out to explain it in person, right? And let them kind of show, oh, okay. But when my guys show up in a clean wrap truck in a uniform, and is standing tall, looking good, and all the things, right? It does impact that trust factor, especially when they're kind of standoffish at first. But we honestly don't see it a lot, right? Like, I think the barrier to entry in all sales and home service is really just being on time and giving good information. And we don't have missed appointments anymore. We're not running late. We're not stuck in traffic. Things don't come up, right? Like you're in Plano and you got to be in Fort Worth, which is an hour apart, and you got to call and tell them, all these things, or I need to reschedule. Those things don't happen. And so most people don't realize that we're saving them time and all the things on the front side, but they always mention it in the reviews on the backside, how much more convenient the process was, and how good we cleaned up, and how communicative we were. And, the techs, were knowledgeable, and our process is, when we get to the house, you knock on the door, you make contact, tell them who you are, what you're there to do. Of course, they already know, because they've already gotten a picture of my techs when they were on the way. Service Titan sends a link that they can click to see where they are on the highway, and how far away they are, and things like that. And so, but when they show up, they say, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, I'm here to fix your door or whatever, or install your door. Can you show me where it's going? I want to look and see, what the door expert told you needed. I want to make sure that's what you need. If it is, we're going to, do the work. If it's not, I want to educate you on why it's not, what you need, and what that'll cost before we do anything. So we go through all that, and then they do whatever work on the repair that is needed from there.
I'll switch gears for 1 second. I meant to ask you this earlier. I noticed, I was late last night, but I was going through it. So I was checking out your website. I really like how it's very family oriented. I mean, the pictures are very authentic, not a bunch of, random model photos of things. But one of the things I noticed I think it was on the About Us page, was And if you can, I'm just curious my own self. What was the fairy godmother thing? What's that about?
Yeah, so I work with a company called Wizard of Ads, and Wizard of Ads is really it's a conglomerate of artistic, creative people who are good at writing ads and other elements of and things, you know, that businesses need, right? And it was founded by a fellow named Roy H. Williams, right? He's the original Wizard of Ads. There's probably some people watching or listening down the road who knows who Roy is. If you don't, look him up, right? Like, he's legendary in marketing, not only in home service. He didn't start out in home service, right? Like, he started out in jewelry and other things, right? Like De Beers, and he's like the number one diamond and jewelry sales ad writer in the world ever. So he got off into home service, though. I'm fairly certain with there's a company in North Carolina called Morris Jenkins.
Okay.
And they, through his ad writing and all the things, he helped them grow that company over 100 and something million in a small market like Charlotte, right? And then the next success story he had, or one of the earlier ones, was Ken Goodrich, who I mentioned earlier when we were talking before, at Gettle in Las Vegas, right? Wrote the ads and all the mass media ads for Goodrich and Gettle from like 2011 out. Took them from single digit millions, losing money, to over 120 something million, as I understand, when he sold. And then 1-800 got junk, right? They came to him when they were like 15, 12 million or something, and they're running up hundreds of millions now, right? But Roy's been with them since the beginning, writing their ads. And so he's the one who is writing all of our creative and all of our ads and stuff like that. And that's a story that he put together that kind of explains, you know, how, our relationship, mine and his. He and another partner are my fairy godmothers, helping me build the airplane while we're trying to fly it, right?
Awesome. I was wondering what it was, because it used to use it was saying it wasn't originally yournewdoor.com. It was DFW or
we started out as DFW Door Repair, right? And most people who start out as solopreneurs or self-employed or whatever don't think big enough. I didn't think big enough. I didn't think that I could ever be a millionaire, let alone, successful. I was just I thought I had a business, right? So DFW Door Repair, I started that because it was early. It was like 2006 or 7. It was searchable on Google, right? It was a popular search term. And I never thought that I would grow this into anything that would go outside of my hometown here, right? And then it started to grow. And then I met Roy, and Roy was like, well, what are you going to do when you go to Houston? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know I was going to Houston. He's like, well, what are you going to do when you go to Austin? Or what are you going to do when you go to Atlanta? Right? What are we going to make DFW Door Repair mean? So it was a marketing meeting where we had to start thinking about those things. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know and he's like, we can figure something out, but he's like, you need to rebrand. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this again. And I'm like, well, what if we just make another brand for these other markets and keep DFW? He's like, I mean, then you got to carry 2 marketing messages and 2 marketing campaigns and all the things. He's like, you just need a brand that will travel. And I'm like, all right. So he finally talked me into it, but it was the best thing we could have ever done. And now, there's a fellow named Dan Antonelli. Some of the people may have heard of him with Kick Charge Creative. He actually just rebranded DFW Door Repair for us, a year and a half or so, maybe a little bit longer, before I met Roy.
Oof.
We'd spent a bunch of time and money, getting our brand professional.
Yeah.
Here comes Roy. He's like, hey, you should consider doing all this. He didn't tell me I had to or make me. He just said, it's going to be a lot easier. And sitting there in that seat at that time, it was just a heavy weight. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I can go through this. But looking back, it was absolutely the right thing to do as we start to create a vision for going to these other markets. Your New Door is going to travel a whole lot better. People ask me all the time if it's a franchise. It just looks like a national brand, and it'll be a whole lot easier to insert in these other markets and not have to worry about it like DFW Door Repair.
Well, one of the things that I was kind of shocked about, I mean, I can't imagine yournewdoor.com was readily available.
Well, that was another thing. We had brainstormed, names that would work and travel well for a long time. And even my wife, she was buying domain names, and Roy's like, y'all need to figure this out. And my wife bought like 15 domain names, just every time she would think of something. And I had a few. And when we got back down to see Roy a few months later, he's like, well, did you come up with anything? We're like, well, we got a few things, but nothing we're really in love with. He's like, good, because I come up with this and I bought it for you, and here you go. So he went online, he got it. He's got some contacts in some high places, and it was someone already had it, but he bought it and gave it to us. So it was really awesome.
Holy cow. Yeah. Well, I think that probably lets you know how serious he was about it if he did it.
Yeah. So I think in the thing that you read, it talks about, my fairy godmothers and investors and things like that. Roy, when he learned about what we were doing and where we were going, and with his experience in marketing and advertising and home service, told me that he believed in what I was doing so much that he wanted to invest in the company, and he had never done that before. And both he and Ryan Shute wrote a check and invested in my company to, help us grow and pay for advertising moving forward. So it was, he put his money where his mouth is. He didn't just say, hey, Billy, you're going to do real good. I'm real proud of you. Good luck. He wrote a check, so.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Man, to have those resources, just the brain, to lean on. And I think you talked about that you and I've talked about it earlier, where you were just a guy installing doors. You didn't really know how to run a business.
I didn't. Right. And, I thought I knew everything until one day I realized that I had a broken mindset. And that was really the change of everything for me. And when I realized that I had that broken mindset, the next day when I woke up and went outside, it was like I'd been living in black and white, and all of a sudden it was color, right? Like everything changed for me from that day. And I started to get a lot more curious about stuff, and I started to seek out answers and looking to people who were already doing the things I wanted to do and filling in the gaps, right? And there's an old saying that it's cliche and everyone says it, but it's true, right? Success leaves clues. So when I started to associate with these people who were doing way bigger things than me, bigger things than I ever thought I was capable of or even deserved, right? I started to believe that I could. And now the people that have helped me kind of shape and mold that mindset and those beliefs, and who have invested in me in other ways, right? Like I'm so grateful, and really all I can do is try and give back and pay it forward in other ways, right? That's why you see me a lot of times posting how I like to help other, business people and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and all these guys just figure out how to get started, right? I don't have a course to sell. I don't have time to be a coach. I don't, I'm still trying to figure out a lot of stuff myself, but it's like going to the gym. I've been going to the gym for a little over a year now, pretty consistently. And when you get to the gym, the first day you look to your left and there's a big, buff bodybuilder guy. But if you look to your right, there's somebody that's way bigger than you that's trying to figure it out too. Like, and heavier, right?
Yeah.
That wants to get in shape. So business is just like that, right? I'm not Tommy Mello, right? Like Tommy Mello is way off in a league of his own.
Yeah.
But I'm also not Chuck in a truck still, right? And if there's a Chuck in a truck or someone that's, just trying to figure out what's next or whatever, I'm between him and Tommy, right? And I have a whole lot of knowledge and skills that I can share with that person, or at least can point them in a direction to where there's a lot of noise, right? Everybody's got a course to sell and whatever, the next big thing, the silver bullet, right? So I can help them filter through the noise and share with them people that I trust and things that I trust that I know will help them, and not just take their money and leave them, with PTSD,
You know how many DMs I get, and I know I've mentioned it. You've probably seen it on the page because I have to remind folks. It's like, where's the hook here, Joe? And I'm like, or what's the? I don't have anything.
Yeah, I don't have anything to sell. I
got nothing. Matter of fact, my wife would probably wish there was a hook, because she's like, I see all this time and I see you on YouTube, and what are you doing? And then you're commenting, and really the group has become more of like a personal diary for me, honestly. Like when I do that Dear Joe post, it's because I'm writing it to myself.
Yeah. But you're being authentic, right? Authenticity is one of the hardest things to fake, right? And
true.
A lot of people do, though. And if you see the guys flashing cash and and I want to say watches and Lambos and all things. Okay, whatever, you made it, whatever, that's fine. I don't have anything against that, but those are usually not the guys that you really, that are super into the physical and the material possessions, right? And that's not really what it means to make it. What it means to make it is to own your own time and to have freedom and to have the time and money to buy those things if you want, right? Or to ride on private jets or whatever. But there's levels to it, right? And generally speaking, if you see somebody that's 25 that's flashing those things, they may have made it through that first level, but they have no idea what the next 3 or 4 levels are going to look like. And one of those levels, a lot of times, shows itself in a way that you lose all those things that you got in the first level and you have to do it again.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in business or life that comes without perils or hardships. And, I could go off on a whole other talk about that. But
I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, I mean, you don't have to go deep on it, but what did you realize was, as you mentioned, you had to get your mindset right. Well, would you mind sharing, like, what did you identify that was holding you back maybe, or just restricting you?
It was a small mindset, right? Like a scarcity mindset. And it was passed on from my parents and it was passed to them from their parents, right? I was raised by people who were raised by people who lived through the Great Depression, right? And people who went through the Depression came out the Depression and through World War II, and the economy took off. They never did much about it because that wasn't a mindset for them. That was a way of life, right? They never knew where their next meal was going to come from. They had farms, they raised vegetables, they canned goods, and they went to the store and bought the things that were on sale. And those people raised my parents, right? And my parents had the same mindset. Can't do that. It costs too much. That'll never work. Can't take that chance. So naturally, those types of thoughts, I was just raised around them. They weren't telling me I couldn't do something really as much as that's the environment, right? Like the goldfish becomes the environment it's in.
Yeah.
And so when I realized that was I didn't realize it was the problem until well after, but I realized it was a problem that I had to fix before I could do anything else. Was I had bought a van when I was working with Dan to get wrapped or whatnot back in 2019. And it was like 30-something thousand bucks. It was nice, top of the line, big cube, all the things. Well, when COVID hit, I went back to buy 2 more in 2021 to get them wrapped and to go through all this and do things. Well, they were gone from like 35 or 36,000 in 2019 to 56,000 in 2021. And I was trying to buy 2 of them and I left mad. I'm like, they're not worth it, right? Like they were this, now they're this, and they're just not worth it. Well, I tell this story a lot, but I raised up in bed at 2 a.m., middle of the night, whatever, and thinking to myself, well, how much are the payments, right? Well, you're going to be all in about $1,000 by the time you pay the interest, the payment, and insurance, right? Well, for $1,000, for not wanting to pay $1,000 for a van that's going to generate you $60,000 to $80,000 a month in revenue, right? Like it's costing you $80,000 to not spend the one. So is it worth it to spend the one? Hell yeah, I should go buy 50 of them.
Yeah.
Right. So when I realized that I was like, holy cow, that's when I went outside and it was like color, right? Like I've been looking at things in terms of cost instead of value my whole life. And it's been holding me back. So had I had this revelation 15 years earlier, who knows how far along I'd be, right? But that was when I realized my mindset was broken. And as I started to learn and to take things in from other sources, I read a book called The Power of Consistency by Weldon Long. He's been on for us here. Weldon Long is a legendary sales guy, heat and air guy, leadership guy, right? And that book really changed my life in the terms of how I think about mindset, and it's a mindset book. And what anybody that's watching this or watches it later or hears my voice, if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter how good you are at sales. It doesn't matter how good you are at installing a door or a window or a bathtub or anything. It doesn't matter how good you are at your skill set. You'll never be able to outrun your poor scarcity mindset. It will hold you back. And when you break those chains, it truly is freeing, right? Like it changes the whole way you look at the universe and you look at business and you look at opportunities, because now I look at things in terms of, well, what is the value here, right? And that's how I started to sell, right? I started to sell a value and how I was going to help people enrich their lives instead of what it was going to cost them. I don't care. Somebody will tell me, well, you're, 25% higher than the other quotes. I'm like, well, that's news to me because I never even shopped around. This is my price, bro. Right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I need to do business and have a profit. And, used to, I would just be like, whatever it takes to get the job. And I didn't even know I was losing money. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I was going to say earlier, we increased our close rate into the 40s while at the same time raising our prices over time 40% higher than they were when we started doing it, So it's not about price. It's about perceived value, right?
Yeah. That's, you bring up a good point about our parents, right? Because I've said that, I've had that similar kind of aha, right? It's not a negative because it just was, right? That's the way it was. And I think the one thing that we actually probably got from our parents and grandparents in that era that not everybody, I guess, has carried on is the resolve that those folks had of that era, right?
Yeah. They have a lot of things that aren't existent today, right? Like, doing business with a handshake and your word is your bond and all those types of things, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I kind of stand out, right? I've adopted the new era and the new way to do things while also doing business, like my grandparents did and melded the two. So I can bridge the gap between baby boomers and older and, Gen X and Gen Z. And, because they're all familiar because they had grandparents, and when I pull all that together, it's familiar, it's trusting, it's all these things that show people that we're here in 2025 doing, business through technology and time savings and all the things, but also, crafting it in such a way to where it feels like an old handshake type experience,
Yeah, that's a bit, do you think the idea though, the mindset around, hey, that's my price. It is what it is, which I think you're spot on. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to do whatever to get the job. But do you think that also comes from like, it helps that, you guys are making it like, there's just more involved, like the owner, like the value,
it's a lot easier to convey value. Right. And it gets a whole lot easier to convey value if I've had someone in front of me. Right. So one of the questions I always ask when on a sales call is, have you had anybody else look at this project yet? Right. And if Pella or Renewal by Anderson or a window company selling Provia, has been there first, I always come in under those guys in price, right? Not because my quality is any less, but I'm also the gap between me and them is also the gap between me and the box store type stuff, right? Like we're in the middle. But when I get off a sales call, if it doesn't close, I go out in the shop and I shoot a selfie video and I walk around the shop showing people all the technology and the tools and the people we have out there and the systems and everything, the paint booth, the paint oven, and showing them, doors that look like they were ordered from a catalog that just came out of our thing. Right. And so when I send that video, a lot of those people are, oh, wow, this is so helpful. Thank you so much for sharing this. Now I can see that it's a lot more than you just going and buying a door somewhere and reselling it to me. And that's that gap, right, in value, because there's not, there may be one in another market somewhere, but I don't know of any other door companies that have our process from that manufacturing standpoint where they get to own that whole process. And then when there's a warranty issue, the traditional model is if they went to the lumber yard and bought the door or window and resold it. Well, if there's a warranty issue, they call you. Well, you got to call the rep for that company and he's going to call the manufacturer's rep. And it's a whole big circle. Yeah. If I install the doors at your house and you have a problem with it, you call, you get my CSR. They're going to ask you to send in a couple pictures and describe the problem. And then if it warrants a warranty, they're going to put you on the schedule on the first gap on the calendar for whoever we can get out there. Right. And it's that easy. And
that's all. That vertical alignment is huge. You don't see it a lot. You don't see it a lot in our space where, again, being vertically aligned, I guess, is the kind of the model, if you will. Most guys just want to market and sell it in our world, not build it.
Most shops are two-step shops, right? All window shops are two-step. There's very few manufacturer, sell, install under one roof, right? On windows. There's a few, but mostly not. But there are 0 door shops that do it, to my knowledge. Where in replacement, where they'll come and sell you a door, build the door, finish the door, and install the door, all with W-2 employees, right? It doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's holy crap. How big's the business, if you don't mind me asking, personnel wise?
Yeah, we're just under 30 or so. We've been as high as 34, 35. We consolidated a little bit. We've brought in some technology and been able to do some things with fewer people. So I think we're at like 26 or 28 right now.
Holy moly. That's that's freaking awesome. I got another question I noticed, if you don't mind me asking, because I think it's a very good topic. It maybe gets overlooked or not touched on, but you've posted on it, so I'm just gonna make the assumption. ADHD and high performance.
Yeah, I
How
think.
what's going on there? I saw you posted that the other day, and of course it just caught my eye, shocker.
Well, I don't know about high performance, right? Like I spent decades, right, just getting to where I'm at. The last 3 years have been warp speed, light years, but it's really because I didn't know what I was doing or I didn't know what I was missing, and I wasn't curious for all those years. I just thought that life came to you as it came downstream, right? The days you live and the things you learn just come flowing like the river. I didn't know until I met some people who had already done it that you can swim upstream, right? And you can accelerate things. One of the most, and I'll get to your question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the most impactful things I ever heard was Alex Hormozy say, the difference between where you are today and where you want to be is what you don't know, right? So you can compress time by learning what it is you need to know to get to where you want to be. So if you make 100,000 a year and you want to make 1 million a year, it's the difference is what you don't know. So every day, every year, every minute you don't know that is costing you $900,000, right? Because eventually you'll get there. You'll eventually learn and know what you need to know to make 1 million. But until you do, every year you're writing a check for the difference. And it's like, holy cow, that really hit home for me. So now I'm a voracious reader, learner. And I take in a lot of podcasts. I watch tons of YouTube stuff on business and all the things. I really got a lot of influence from plumbing and heat and air, all the things. See, my ADD's kicking in. I'm going all over the place. But what I've learned, and I have a few examples, are guys that are super all over the place. I have a million ideas all day long, right? And if I don't write them down in the morning, it may have happened here somewhere I've talked over you, or my wife catches me all the time talking over her. The problem with me is I have so many thoughts that if I don't blurt it out when it comes to my mind, when they quit talking and they ask me, okay, what was it? I can't remember. It's just gone. So I read a lot, but I have to do it in the morning when I first wake up, within the first couple hours of waking up, because if I do it in the afternoon or at night, I'll read a chapter and be thinking about something else and be like, holy crap, what did I just read? And I got to go back and read it all over again. So I contain my reading and learning in the mornings. I'll listen to a podcast or book when I'm driving. But what I've heard and what I've read and what I've seen is people with ADHD and even other learning disabilities, they try harder. They have to compensate in other ways for certain things, so they wind up being able to do things faster, more proficiently and things like that. And I'll use my friend Tommy as an example, right? Like there's no doubt that Tommy Mello's got ADD, right? Like he's just all over the place. And I never seen anybody, he could listen to you for 5 minutes and take 10 pages of notes. I've never seen anybody do that. I'm like, gosh, what are you getting out of this, bro? Because I got like 3 sentences,
Right.
But he's just like that. And there's a lot of others. And a lot of people think that, I see stuff about, I was never diagnosed with it as a kid or put on medication, but I think if I had been, it probably would have stunted me, at least my imagination and creativity, because I have thoughts that go around my head, like hundreds and thousands of thoughts a day and ideas and ways to do stuff. If I don't grab it when it comes by and write it in my notebook or say something about it when it goes by, in 45 seconds, I will not remember it until my quiet time or something. And it may come back. I have to write it down.
Yeah, I keep a pad by my bed for that reason. It's weird. I'll get woken up with something, or I just naturally get up to, as we get older, we use the bathroom in the middle of the night and you're coming back to get in bed and you're like, ding. And you're like, yeah, I saw you comment on it. And actually what you were mentioning about, it is a superpower.
I think so.
When harnessed,
it makes communication and speaking a little bit challenging for me sometimes, right? Like my wife just hates it when I talk over her and I'm like, I'm sorry, I just have to say it or I won't remember. and I catch myself doing that a lot in conversations too, especially sales. It does not conducive to sales. I'm also a high D on the disc profile. I'm also an I, so I should be pretty good at sales being an I, but I know what people, I'm always in a hurry, right? So I know what they're going to say, and I don't need to listen to them tell me the problem with the door. I already saw it in the pictures, right? But it's super challenging for a salesperson to be a D and also ADD, and it becomes a challenge.
Yeah, that's I have to be concerned about, like, personally, like, if you're, especially for yourself, and maybe you can answer this, but I've found that as in a leadership position, it can be exhausting for the folks that are under you. Right?
It can. And the way that I've coped with it is I hire, people to take the things off my plate, right? Like with me, I am very good at coming up with ideas and getting things started, right? Like I'm a 40%er, man. I can paint a picture, create a vision, get my team on board, and I can run with it for about 40%. But when we start getting into the details, they lose me, right? Like, I wish you could see my desk. I got paper stacked everywhere. I'm just not a detailed person, but I hired people who are. And I always knew I was a visionary, so I hired an integrator, an implementer, and he took everything off my plate, right? Like, as far as, especially early on, he took everything off my plate that didn't generate revenue, and I focused on the things that did. But I'll go to him with ideas and stuff, and we'll put together a framework on how to implement it, and they take it from there. And then I'll come back in and help clean it up, and but having people like that can implement my ideas, or at least that's probably not a good idea, or it is a good idea. Maybe we should wait till we get to this point, or we need to start that immediately, right? Because I joke around. If somebody texts me on my cell phone and wants a door, my cell phone and my desk are where things go to die, because I don't remember. I lose stuff. And I always tell people, friends, family, referrals to my personal phone. I'm like, I need you to call or text the main office line. My people will take care of you way better than I will, because I just lose focus and I'm all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, no, at least I think acknowledging it and recognizing it's obviously, like anything, it's step one. And then having good people. And then probably I would assume your implementer will push back on you when he or she thinks it's a dumb idea. That's important too, right?
Yeah, it helps. I've got more A players here for a team my size than a lot of companies have in 100-person companies, right? I've been super blessed. Growing a team and growing a business is super hard, right? Like you've got to, especially if you want to scale, right? Like we have big visions and big goals and big dreams, and all of those require scale, and scale requires people, obviously, right? So getting the right people on the bus, getting the right people to buy into your vision and to become drivers of that bus in their departments is super important. And, if you're going to grow a business today and you're going to scale, like a guy my age, I couldn't make it hiring, no offense to you 40-year-old installers out there, 45, 50, right? You guys have got all the great experience, but you're untrainable, right? Like, you know how to install a door, but the customer experience we provide is so much more than the door. The door is just the outcome. The whole journey for that customer to have the experience with a home service company like they've never had before is almost as important as the outcome of a beautifully installed door, right? And our brand promise and all the things, old dogs, they don't want to learn those tricks, right? So
yeah, those guys want to install probably by themselves, not with a helper or a partner. They don't want to talk to people, and especially with doors, you're somewhat interior.
Yeah,
and yeah,
most of the time that's the case. And what I've found, what I do know is if I'm going to scale a company, I'm not going to be able to do it on the backs of our generation, right? For labor.
Yeah.
So I need to learn how to work with millennials and these kids that are coming onto the market. And I need to learn how to communicate with those people. And I need to learn how to inspire those people and manage those people and have people around me that also can do that, right? So that's really kind of how I've shifted my focus. And we've had really good success. If you can read a tape measure and have a driver's license and have a good attitude, I can train you how to do what we do. It's not that hard. So it's become, kind of a secret sauce, if you will, for us.
Since I don't want to hold you up, I know we've gone a little long. I do want to ask though, because this is a big topic, where there's this frustration with the younger generation in terms of, work ethic and just, it's not like they used to be or whatever. What have you found to be helpful or the difference maker in obviously connecting with them and being able to bring them on and grow and develop? Obviously, it sounds like pretty successful. Anything you got there quick? I apologize. I know it's kind of last again, but
I'm good. So, people, goes back to the mindset thing, right? And I hear guys like from my dad's generation and even my generation, I get in these circles. You go to the supply house and there's a guy, Chuck, in a truck. He's like, people don't want to work. Kids don't want to work these days. And what immediately goes, I used to think like that. But what it is they don't want to work for you. Right. You don't have anything for them to look forward to. You can't inspire them. You can't lead them. You can't manage them. And it's not because you don't want to, it's because you don't know how, right? If you wanted to, you would learn how and you would be able to grow a company, right? Because the foundation of any business to grow, you have to have a leader, right? But that leader has to have vision and he has to share that vision with those people to inspire them. I brought this up talking to somebody yesterday, but there's this old saying, and I'm going to get it and print it on my wall somewhere. But if you want to, if you want to get men to build a boat, don't tell them to go gather wood. Inspire them and make them yearn for the vast sea, right? Yep. So you have to cast a vision. You have to create a vision, and your vision has to be big enough for their visions and their dreams and their goals outside of this place to fit inside. And you got to give them, you got to show them what it looks like to level up inside your business. You can't just hire them for $15 an hour and say, we'll look at you again in 90 days. Good luck, right? You got to show them when they come on. This is what it likes to win. This is what it's like to win here. These are the levels. This is how you make more money here. And this is what you can ultimately do. And we try and give our techs, a roadmap to at least 100,000 a year in the field, right? And then other opportunities. So they need to be inspired. You have to share your vision, and you also have to understand what excites them or what their visions and goals are, right? Because a lot of times young people, it's not necessarily money anymore. There's a lot of kids that still get a lot of help from their parents, and they haven't grasped the whole work is for money for survival thing, right? Because their parents are still helping them a lot of times. So it's all about inspiring them and then also investing in them. We have Leadership Book Club here, and if you're going to grow a business, one of the bottlenecks to scale and growth is leadership, right? And there's only two ways to get leaders. You can grow them from within, or you can hire it and bring it in. If you grow it from within and you start early, right, you can start to develop a bench. And if you start early enough, you'll have some people that are ready down the road when that time comes. So we do Leadership Book Club. Everybody here reads the same book at the same time, and then we digest it a few weeks a month when we do breakfast on Fridays. And then the other way is to hire it in. I suggest hiring it in for things like C-suite and bigger picture and, guys that know things that you don't know that they can bring in to help you, have that quantum leap in your organization. But if for field level and ops level type stuff, if you can inspire and train your people and give them the leadership skills, when it's time to have that leader, you're not just promoting the guy that was just the best at the thing. So you lose your best sales or installer to now make him a manager, and he has zero, inclination on how to be a leader or a manager at all, right? And he gets eaten alive, and eventually quits or wants to go back to his old job. So I feel that it's my duty to leave these people better than I found them, even if they go on, this company blows up and they're on the open market. Wherever they go, they're going to be head and shoulders above their peers because of what I've poured into them and taught them, and that's important to me.
It brings up a good point, and I think I saw you served, right? Is that correct?
I did.
Military. I read somewhere, and I want to say my father served, and I think he told me this too. But I also read somewhere the military can't hire from the outside for leaders, right? They can't go find a general that didn't start at some point as a private. So their mentality is that everybody that they onboard, if you will, but come in through boot camp, whether their intention is to be a grunt or a whatever, I don't know, a private or a 5-star general, they put them on the path to go to develop them as if they're ultimately going to end up being the next, whatever, general or commander. So, and I think because again, they don't have that second option.
Yeah. And they all get trained on the same technical specs and the manuals and books and ways to do things, right? Like everything is the same. And there's a lot of things that I learned from the military that I brought back. There's also a lot of things in the military, the leadership styles don't work in the open market and things like that, especially with kids, right? Or young people. But yeah, so you can either train from within. What happens if you promote someone from within is they already know your systems and processes, and you have a whole better time on getting your people to buy into that leadership than if you bring someone from the outside. They can eventually get buy-in, but then they have to learn your systems and processes and how everybody works and all the things. So neither one is bad. I just think that training them as you go and investing in them, if you invest in them and they see that you're actually making an investment in time and energy and knowledge in them, it makes them more apt to stay, right? Like in a place where they know they're appreciated and someone is giving them more than the bare minimum nourishment, right? And like I said, no matter what, when they leave here, if I've got a kid that's read How to Win Friends and Influence People, Chop Wood, Carry Water, and 3 or 4 other books, and he goes out on the open market against his peers, which one of them you think is going to stand taller in another organization and get promoted faster?
I'm so glad you said Chop Wood, Carry Water. It's one of my favorites. All of his books are. One last thing I was just thinking about, reminds me of, and I'll run it by you, get your take. So you've sold now, you've probably heard the old saying in some book or maybe on some podcast too, in the absence of value, the only determining factor is price.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And I take that, which I think it is very, very true, right? If there's no differentiator from that standpoint, they're not. And I think it's very true with our employees. In the absence of value, all they're going to do is look at their pay stub.
Yep.
And it's not trying to pay less for people, but it is that, hey, there's more to it than if, gosh forbid, they don't hit the number, especially a sales guy, gosh forbid, they don't hit the sales, they don't hit, you change the comp plan and they don't quite, it's changed, so they freak out. But there's more to it than just that they'll stay and they'll work through the challenges and the adversity, which is just something I see a lot.
They need to see value for their time, right? And so as business owners, we have 2 types of customers, right? We have our internal customers, which are the people that work here, and we have our external customers. And the old, wisdom is you take care of your internal customers and they'll take care of your external customers. And it's true, but they both need to see a value exchange for their money external or their time internal. And if they don't see a path forward, then you're going to have a lot of turnover.
Yeah. And that's especially with your world, because you've got everything from manufacturing all the way through. Turnover with sales reps, obviously it's not fun because you're retraining, but it's probably not nearly as challenging as some of the production side that you, I'm sure, deal with.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys that know how to make door parts for a custom side.
Well, hey, man, we went way over time. I did not mean to hold you on for that long, Billy, but I can't thank you enough. A lot of folks, obviously, in the group will watch it and catch it after, but we did have quite a bunch of people log on there. So, again, man, I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you asking me to come on. I really love talking business. I love talking, vision and how I got to where I'm at. I could talk for days about stuff. I had a lot of people invest time and mentorship in me and still do, right? And money even. I had guys give me tickets to go to shows that I couldn't afford to go to, and I met people that become lifelong friends and mentors and things. So the key to all of it is curiosity. Become curious, have a good mindset, an abundant mindset. And when you do kind of start to figure something out, give some of that knowledge away to someone around you that could use it.
Yeah. 100%. Hey, have a good weekend, my friend. Is it okay if, obviously the best way for folks, if they want to kind of connect with you just through the group, go through Facebook. Is that all right?
Yeah. Facebook's best. I'm on X also. working on profiles and some of the other stuff, but Billy the Door Guy on both X and Facebook.
Sweet. Hey, man, I appreciate it. And again, folks, if watching this, definitely, I mean, that's how I met Billy. I just reached out to him. I saw some of the things he was sharing and posting and was like, hey, I want to pick your brain. So, yeah, man, have a great weekend. Thanks, Billy.
You too, man.
All right. Bye.
Bye.